I wanted to quickly rearrange the schedule and go to old business first, so the consultants can start us off, and if that's all right. I had, well, I guess Julia, you are on the agenda first. I don't know if it still makes sense for you to go before Meg, but that's what I had.
Sure, yeah, I'm happy to go. So I sent around the climate action strategies list last week. Is there anybody who didn't get a chance to look through those?
It looks good, Julia. A lot of good ideas
Okay.
there. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Let me, I can pull, well, I don't know if you guys have it in front of you or if it would be helpful for me to pull it up.
I think it would be good for you to share, Julia. I'd have to find it.
Let me do that.
Hey, Jackie, sorry, we're just getting started. I totally forgot about you. We're just rearranging the agenda, though, to talk about the old business first.
All right, so yeah, Jackie, I was just pulling up the climate actions list that I had shared last week.
Right.
So my thought was that we could just go through each page, and if anybody had any thoughts or comments, we could talk about them now. So yeah, the first category was energy efficiency and sustainable transportation. And I know Nancy, you had sent a comment about that,
Yeah.
about adding a potential strategy. So I did want to talk about that because I know Sky, you and Mark had talked about that, about adding something along the lines of the town will contract a public bus system. So yeah, Sky, I don't know if you had thoughts about that.
I think there was something in the initial list that was something like that, and we had ended with, you know, that we'll participate in regional conversations, but the cost to do a private system around Topsham is pretty astronomical. So that wasn't something that the manager or I were particularly interested in.
Julia, what extent of one were you looking at one? You were looking at not, I was thinking more of contracting out what Western Maine Transportation
It's really
doing
expensive for them.
on a, like maybe 6 or 8 runs a day to 3 locations. And what sort of, what is that, what did you look, what scope of
That's
project
about
did you
the
look
scope
at?
we would have been considering. It's really expensive to do that.
Because about 10 years ago or so, it was estimated at $20,000 cost to
Mhm.
the 3 places in town. So it might be,
I know that there have been
35,000.
somewhat recent
that was
conversations.
by an employee of the town.
Yeah, I know there have been somewhat recent conversations about that and that the cost has been really high. I think that if that's something that the energy committee wants to vote, like maybe that everyone here wants to put in, you could, but we would just attach a note to it that it would be a really significant cost to the taxpayers to vote for it.
Well, I think this is a time of visioning alternatives to a car-centered culture, which we live in here. And we've actually been promoting lots more purchasing and people coming into town just to buy things. And we have a lot of people who live in town and work elsewhere and vice versa. Now, the employees in town come from elsewhere. So some thinking about promoting, encouraging carpooling, encouraging those of us who live in town, you know, walking and bicycling and so a different perspective that we don't all have to be depending on cars. The new residents who are coming into Brunswick are all being given driver's ed training right away, and there's no way they're going to afford a car for
Nancy,
6 months.
did you notice the one that says conduct needs assessment for local
Yes.
transit options? I
That's a
feel
good
like
one.
if they
That's a good
just
one.
study it, they'll find out how much demand there is, and that could then also
Yeah.
start talking about reducing the cost
Yeah.
if this is something. So I think that is covered.
That's
I
really
feel like
important.
let's just
Yeah, that's really important.
keep this one for sure.
Well, okay, I just point out we could think that's the first step, obviously.
Right,
That
yeah,
has to
so
happen.
let's take the first step.
Yeah. I
And
guess that'll-
I think that's an important thing to think about, is that, you know, this list doesn't preclude the town from doing other things in the future. I think you can look at it as sort of the first steps of, you know, what are the sort of the first impactful actions we could take to kind of make some progress. Yeah. Does that
Well,
help?
Yeah, because really what we need is a Bath Brunswick to Topsom transportation system that gets people to either to work and to essential services. Because our aging population here in Topsom is going to be at 25% at some point here. And if you count handicapped people, it's already at plus elderly folks that who don't live at the Highlands and can't get a bus, don't have a bus in their house to get them places. There are three, or at least
Yeah.
there are two large low-income housing places where people, I feel compelled to have cars, and it's gonna be increasingly dangerous as they get more
Yeah.
elderly to be driving all these cars around.
Yeah, I appreciate that input. And so, so it sounds like we're good with where things stand for that transit action right now for conducting a needs assessment. Did anyone else have any other comments on the energy efficiency or sustainable transportation actions? Any actions that didn't really fit, or, language that you wanted to change or anything like that?
Would we possibly add to the support local public transit item? Something like, with an eye towards reducing trips, or just some sort of an action, or why would you conduct a needs assessment? What are we getting at? And we'd like to.
Oh, it also addresses
Local
social
transit.
vulnerabilities too, because people who are getting older or not as firm can take a bus a lot easier than they can drive. So I don't know, it's kind of a catch-all. So yeah, I agree. I mean, maybe
Just something that says, okay, needs assessment. Okay, now we figured out what that is. Well, what the heck would it be? So, just having something out there, with why you would conduct a needs assessment.
yeah.
Yep.
That's to support
I can
local
expand
transit
that.
options. Like, I think so the next one, the support alternative modes of transportation. They have like other ways in which to limit cars.
Yes, yeah.
So I feel like the needs assessment is speaking specifically to the bus opportunities.
Yeah, and we should say so,
But
yeah.
these
yeah.
other ones
Yeah.
below, I feel like are, have specifics about reduced, cluster development to limit
Yeah,
vehicle
these are-
miles traveled.
These,
The complete streets also has, kind of an aim towards reducing traffic.
Okay.
My question about the complete streets is, if we're already doing it, does this need to go to a vote for adoption? Does it need to stay in here?
So Bike Ped is working on that right now. I think that was the note that I gave Julia. I'm not
Like, does it
sure.
need to be passed, or like, is it just happening?
No, they're working on it. right
Well,
now.
it's kind
But
of
like,
like,
once it's completed, does
Yeah,
it
it's-
need to go
there's
to
gonna-
town meeting?
their thought right now is that they're developing a plan for complete streets. It's actually more like a Vision Zero plan. Like what kinds of things do we need to do to reduce, mortality and incidents on the roads with people using alternative methods. And so the question is then, the plan will say, these are the actions that should be taken.
Mhm.
And here's the kinds of options that can be used in certain cases. So it's gonna be a mix. It's not just gonna be like, here's some new,
Yeah.
here's a new ordinance. It's gonna be
Yeah.
more like,
Yeah.
there's a bunch of things that need to be done. Maybe it's some ordinance changes, maybe it's some stuff that the town can just do, et cetera. So
Maybe-
it'll
Oh,
all
sorry,
gonna
go
be-
ahead, Victoria.
happens with
Yeah,
redevelopment and repaving of roads and that kind of stuff. So it's gonna be pretty comprehensive.
Hmm.
So anyway,
Well, you just reminded me, I have more of a process, like global question about, is there gonna be a crosswalk between these and the comprehensive plan strategies, or how is that
Yeah.
being coordinated?
And
Well-
recode.
yeah.
Yeah.
Developing a police streets policy was part of the comprehensive plan.
That's what I thought, yeah.
So.
But in
that's-
general, I was just, with these strategies, how do they align with the comprehensive plan strategies, or can we do some sort of a crosswalk document, that shows
Mhm.
where they don't, or, that kind of thing? And
That's
maybe
a
that's
great
already been
question.
thought of, I didn't know, so.
Yeah, I can answer a little bit to that. We did review the comprehensive plan and the strategies in the plan. early on in the process. So sort of the way that we ended up refining the list was informed by what's in the comprehensive plan. But we didn't, we didn't sort of go through each of these strategies and say, this is also listed in the comprehensive plan. I know some of these are, like regional bus transportation is listed in the comprehensive plan. I think to sort of go through each of these strategies and cross-reference it with the comp plan is a great idea. It's beyond the scope that we're able to do for our work, but if it's something that, either the Energy Committee or if MCOG was able to do that as part of the climate action plan writing, I think it's a great idea. But I can say that these are at least informed by the comprehensive plan strategies, if that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm gonna be really brief and I want to get off this subject, but on the support local public transit, I'd like to say support local and regional public transport.
Sure.
In order to encompass the workers coming in and out, which is a huge number of vehicles that come into Topsham and out of Topsham daily.
Yeah,
Can
that's
we-
a good point. I can add that. Yeah.
Yeah, please.
I get a couple more. I don't think
Yeah.
that people know what cluster development is, so either be more specific or.
Sure.
Like, this is like the general public.
Yeah, and actually,
So-
we have a cluster development ordinance, so I'm not sure if you mean that specifically, or you mean just being more, what do you call it? Building more in the center of town rather than in the rural areas. I mean, that kind of general cluster. I'm not sure what that means. That stood out to me as like, what does this mean exactly? So.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could really be either of those things. It is pretty broad the way we have it in here right now. I think the fact that you guys have a cluster development ordinance, does it feel like it's still relevant to have this in there? I mean, I think if you already have an ordinance, this would probably be more of, kind of when the planning board is reviewing applications and sort of thinking about development and future land use, it would be sort of with that kind of vision in mind. So maybe a little more, kind of on the future land use planning side of things rather than like implementing additional ordinances. But if it feels like that's kind of already been done, we could take it out too.
The cluster quote unquote development we have is really more about, getting bonus density in rural development, by leaving part of the property open. It
Right.
doesn't really reduce vehicle miles traveled if that development is at the edge of town.
Increases.
So it almost increases. So I'm not sure, that's why I'm not sure that's the right term to get at what you're talking about. So maybe a different strategy, a different name for that strategy, like.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be-
Yeah,
More
so I think this would be more about, concentrating development in areas that would allow people to walk from place to place as opposed to
Yeah.
drive or walk or bike rather than driving from place to place. So maybe we could say that instead of say cluster development, which is kind of, jargony.
Yeah.
Would that be good? Okay.
I think that's covered in the encourage, promote, infill, redevelopment, and the existing service centers in downtown.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I think I would just remove this. cluster
just remove
development.
it. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Here it is.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
And I had a question about pursue transit oriented development and transit supportive land use and new development. I don't know what that is.
Yeah,
I think it
Orient
needs,
development is definitely it means basically accommodating, bus routes and train routes or whatever, having development clustered around where those routes exist rather than, spreading them out and making it hard for people to get from where they live to where the bus is. So, not that we have any particular buses at the moment or trains.
Where was that event? I don't see
the
that.
last one under
Last one.
support
Yeah,
Oh,
alternative
okay.
modes of transportation, if she scrolls down a little
Oh,
bit more.
okay.
I know.
this
some of
last one.
Policy wonky, like I'm just thinking of
I would say
people
so.
who.
Yeah.
Understand how to understand
They're
it.
not envisioning a bus system here, period, so like.
yeah.
Maybe it's not really relevant.
Well, or maybe something like, pursue development that, how do you say this without the jargon? Pursue development that makes it, possible for people to, use public transit or something like that. And
Yeah.
really what that is, sort of, that's up there.
And I
What's
mean,
that?
basically sort of the encourage and infill development and pursue transit oriented development, they're kind of the same thing. One is more about, clustering development closer together so people don't have to drive around. And then the other one is doing it in areas where there's public transit. So maybe it would sort of be combining these and maybe adding like some parentheses or something that's, and clustering development in areas where public transit options, where there could be future public transit options or something like that.
Yeah,
Since
that
I
sounds
think you're
good.
right, there isn't really any right now, so.
Any more on that page?
This is, may sound, I'm not even sure this is really relevant, but it's something that I'm experiencing. I love to walk anywhere that I can. And there's one place that I would walk to regularly, except that there's no crosswalk where I would like to cross. And so, if something could be said about choosing places for crosswalks that make it easier for people to walk.
I think that would be covered in the complete streets policy. That's sort of the
Okay.
idea behind it, is to,
Okay.
include crosswalks and sidewalks and bike lanes and things like that, so that roads and, sort of transit ways are more accessible to all modes of transportation.
Great, thank
But
you.
yeah, I think it's a great point.
Yeah,
And I did want to go back to that one of that because you were asking, it sounded like you were wondering about the word, if saying adopt a complete streets policy was really the right thing to say there, or whether maybe it should be something like implement a complete streets policy. Is that kind of
Yeah.
what you were getting at earlier?
Yeah, I think implement would be good. I just wasn't
Okay.
sure if we were at a place to actually,
Gosh, I got it.
I mean, we're planning.
Yeah,
And then we have these elements, so
Right, yeah.
I would say, hopefully we get the plan done and then implement things in the plan.
and actually, since we've gotten rid of both cluster development and transit oriented development, I put a plug in for one more item, which is regional trails.
Sure, yeah. That's a good
That's
idea.
one of my pet peeves.
Something like continue to support development of regional trail system or something like that.
Yeah,
In town or between towns, because
All
we're
of it.
working on the between.
all of it.
All of the
The whole thing.
Okay,
Regional trails.
yes, yeah.
Regional trails, I mean,
Regional.
it's nice to have it for in town to get, a mile or so, but it's also useful for people who want to get to like Bowdenham, who might work there. So.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Julia, that's totally fine with Mark and I. We're both working on stuff related to that, so.
Thanks, Sky. All right, are we good to move to the next page?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So resilient buildings and infrastructure. And there are 2 pages on this one. This first page is more related to sort of planning, policy, ordinances, private infrastructure, and then sort of limiting flood risks. So any thoughts on this one?
I don't think anyone knows what the first one is.
Yeah,
so
I don't know
remove
what that,
it.
yeah, I don't know what that means, but.
Sure, yeah. And maybe that's I can word that differently, because I think basically, so there was model resilience ordinance language that was developed that's, could be used by any town in Maine to essentially improve your ordinances to make to sort of incorporate more resilience considerations. So things like having a higher elevation above the base flood elevation in flood prone areas, things like that. So I think what this should really say is just incorporating resilience considerations into existing ordinances or something like that. Would that be more clear?
Mhm.
Yes,
Yeah, I think so.
You could, in some parentheses, you can say, you know, using the existing
Mm,
planning, you know, something like that, but.
yeah.
Yeah,
And that's
but-
really, I sort of get what I think I put that in there because I was just thinking, oh, I just want people to know that there's something that already exists out there, but for most people, that's not really, you know, that it wouldn't be developing it from scratch, you know, there's already sort of some
Yeah.
stuff out there.
It might be nice to include that like in the appendix, like a list of resources or something like that.
Mm.
Unless that's beyond your, beyond your scope.
Yeah, it's definitely something I think when we provide the final list, we can include some, you know, links and stuff like that in that list.
So what is the change we've just made here? Incorporate resilience into policy planning and ordinances.
I
Yeah,
think it would, yeah, something like incorporate resilience considerations or something like that into existing ordinances.
Into existing ordinances.
How about you add in future climatic conditions into future ordinances and municipal policies? Can you combine those two? Because I'm like, what's really the difference?
Yeah, it's true. They're not really different.
Good.
Then I had a question about the direct new development away from areas that have high exposure to climate hazards, blah, blah, blah. This one, I just felt like, you know, you asked us to think about like 3 different questions and I'm thinking, I think it needs more specifics here. You know, like.
Yeah.
what means? So we're talking about land conservation.
actually, it's
The
probably,
hazard overlook zone is a nice resource maybe instead.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure if it's already covered or if we want to be specific. Would you say, Victor?
it's kind of a mix, this could be a lot of things, so yeah, I don't know, it's, could be ordinance changes. Like a hazard, you know, hazard zone or something like that, or non-ordinance as in conservation efforts, you know, could be both.
I don't remember if there was like a conservation, like support,
Yeah,
conservation of lands in.
There is in the environment and waste management, which is sort of a mushed category. And
Yeah,
the
'cause-
last one
conservation efforts, yeah.
here is consider climate change implications of conservation efforts. So basically continue conserving areas in flood prone areas. And I could add here, you know, to limit development in those areas. Yeah, and I think the reason in the direct new development away from areas exposed to climate hazards, I didn't make that more specific just because I wasn't sure kind of what would make the most sense for Topsham, whether it would be something like an ordinance change or whether it would be more of, you know, just kind of incorporating language into existing policies or things like that. So I don't know if you guys have thoughts about, you know, what kind of specific type of action would be implementable in Topsham.
I think you've got the example of the hazard overlay zone.
Yeah,
And why don't we just use, you know, keep that one?
I like
And you've
that.
already talked about land into conservation. I just.
And maybe
you
just
know,
remove the direct development since it's already kind of included in both of those.
That's what I think.
Yeah. That sounds good. Any other thoughts on this page? Oh, sorry, let me go back to the page we were on. Any other thoughts about this page?
Are we on board 2 of resilient buildings yet, or just the first page?
We were just finishing the first page.
All right.
but we can move to the second board now.
Yeah,
But nobody said anything about the stormwater capacity study. I think that sounds like an awfully good idea, particularly for the areas in town, including the Highland and the Creek area that are in the high water table area, basically, and that's in the center of town.
Is that something that hasn't been done?
Hmm.
I'm not sure,
yeah, I don't know.
honestly, not sure. It just kind of, we went through a whole big list of these last week and
Seems
Yeah,
like-
because I know there's been, when we were reviewing all of the documents, there's certainly been a lot in the Topsham Fair Mall area. But
Mhm.
it wasn't clear if sort of town-wide there had been, it doesn't seem like recently there's been sort of like a town-wide stormwater capacity study that we could find. But, yeah,
Okay.
I think we're, we tend to be aware of where there might be problem areas and
Right, you're
Dennis does a
thinking
good
about
job.
problem areas.
But I'm not sure if there's been a comprehensive thing, which I think is
Right.
part of the reason I felt like, yeah, that can stay in. If people are feeling strongly about that, maybe that's a sign that we do need to do one,
Mhm.
we'll take that to the residents.
so yeah, this second page is really about sort of storm impacts, understanding more about groundwater levels in the neighborhoods that have had flooding issues, improving flood resilience, particularly of the roads that have been flooding, during storms, and then improving resilience of the electricity grid. Any thoughts about this page?
I wonder if we ought to specify Forside Road is along with Bay Park and Ivanhoe Drive, and I don't think there'll be any new houses going in along the shore, but just this whole shore of the Androscoggin in the tidal zone ought to be monitor groundwater levels because it's rising there with the sea, as the sea level rises, so does the Androscoggin, that Kennebec and Androscoggin River before the dam. So the part along the Library Road and all the way up, the long way, all the way to Pleasant Point, all that shoreland is going to be, there is rising seawater levels into people's backyards along the river there.
Yeah,
roads-
that's a good point, and I think that's a pretty long term. That would be more on the scale of kind of the next like 50 to 70 years kind of time frame.
Yeah.
That I think those communities would maybe, or those not communities, those sort of neighborhoods would maybe see those impacts. So I guess that's the reason I didn't include it here, but maybe it's worth just putting a note that, kind of these Bay Park and Ivanhoe Drive are kind of the short-term priority areas, but that the Forside Road area would, and sort of Pleasant Point Road area would be more of a long-term areas of concern, or areas of concern over the long term.
There are about 8 or 9 houses. So the first loop that comes out past the turnpike that are already, their backyards are already, the water levels rising and they're getting flooding in their basements. That's not long-term. That's happening now and going to increase. And there won't be more houses built there because the houses are on the road, which is farther away from the river, but those houses are all going to have flooding problems and erosion problems there. Some of them have it already.
This was on Forside Road, you said?
No, it's the little neighborhood that comes south of Forside Road, just after you turn onto it from 24.
Pinewood Drive.
Thank you, that's the name.
Oh,
on
Pinewood Drive. Okay.
Pinewood Drive.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize that they were also having that issue. So,
They're flooding there
Yeah,
in their basements, and it's gonna only increase as sea level comes up. It's gonna be the next 10 years, not
yeah,
long.
I remember someone saying that there was flooding in that area, but I guess I didn't realize that it was the same like basement flooding. So anyways, yeah, okay. We'll add Pinewood Drive there.
Thank you.
All right. Any other thoughts about roads specifically, or electricity grid resilience. Okay. Moving on to the next one. So this is environment and waste management, which I just kind of, there just weren't as many strategies, so I just put them all on one together. Were there any, so we talked already about conservation in flood prone areas and sort of conservation climate considerations. Any other thoughts about this page specifically?
Did we just update the watershed management plan for the Fair Mall, or was it just some study? It was just a study, okay.
No, Julia, that has not been updated.
That's my understanding, yeah.
I had another one, which was the implement climate resilient and sustainable landscaping approaches for municipal operations. I didn't know if we wanted to be more specific, but I have some specifics. Like instituting no mow May, create a yearly goal to reduce acreage of area mowed by Public Works and Rec and increase pollinator habitat. And we're already
I
trying
like
to do one
those.
of those.
Yeah.
Working on one of them.
Yeah.
So I don't know if, how folks feel about really getting specific. I do think that the general gist of it, you know, you could extrapolate in your mind what that could be like, but I thought I would just write those down because I thought of them.
Yeah.
Are you
Rather
good
could-
including those as examples? Just kind of like, you know, sorry, Sky, is that good if we include those
I
examples?
think those are fine as examples.
Okay.
That's about what I think we would expect from that, so.
And what was the last one you said of that? Reduce acreage mode, and then there was another one,
Increase pollinator habitat,
Yeah.
increase
mow.
pollinator.
no mow Maine.
And no
The
mow.
great idea is it will save fuel, time mowing, labor, costs. And increase wildlife benefit from the insects that are brought to the area. I'm
Yeah,
thinking the state parks and along the Cadence and
Well, that-
Park,
Country farm already.
the library yards.
Sounds already.
one thing I did want to ask you I just wanted, so on the waste management side of things, this was something that we didn't find a lot of information about in terms of, you know, kind of operations at the transfer station currently, and if there's any sort of, you know, waste reduction kind of efforts that are ongoing. So these were the only one that we really put in here that's kind of relevant to the transfer station would be a swap shop. Are there any other thoughts that you guys have
Well-
just from your experience?
There's composting going on there, and
Right.
it hasn't been very much promoted, but there sometimes, the manager will will give out how to compost and what to do, sheets to people, but he's not promoting it very much, and he wasn't interested in the state project to increase, use a grant to try to meet goals to increase the amount of food waste kept out of the waste stream.
I feel like they're more informal education with them,
Yeah,
like they always
yeah.
stop and talk to you,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it might be worth mention of like instituting some more formal education in the form, you know, in the form of flyers or posters or.
But
That
in
kind of
general,
thing.
though, they're pretty good about.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're
it's pretty
good.
good about trying to keep down the amount of stuff we throw away because
Yeah,
it
yeah.
just costs the town more
No,
money,
they're
so.
excellent, but maybe even just, you know, just
Yeah,
just
some more public-
formalizing it a little
Public
bit.
outreach maybe, so something along those lines.
He's shifted
Mhm.
the clothing donation box because Goodwill wasn't doing their job, and they've got a responsible organization from New Hampshire, apparel
Alternatives, yeah.
Apparel
They're great.
impact,
Impact.
apparel impact,
Yeah.
that will come and get it regularly, and they're all over town now, so that's a good step. And there are some things like bicycles and pieces of household items that people could use or are left outside the recycle building for the day, and then don't.
Yeah,
if
although
people don't
actually,
take 'em.
I like the idea of the swap shop because it's the stuff that's left, if it's left there for more than a day, it just gets swept
Yeah.
up into trash. And I don't
Yeah.
go there every day.
Yeah.
I go there once or 2 weeks
Yeah,
or
you-
something, so
you
it
miss
would be nice to have sort of more of a collection, that could stay around for good things, not stuff that's broken or whatever, but stuff. that
Yeah,
seems like nice.
reusable. Try to
Yeah.
get Ed interested in having another space. to do
Yeah,
That, I'm not sure where it would happen.
Yeah, I don't know
That's
either, but-
undercover.
yeah, I know,
But it's a great idea. We used to do it at Top in Pittsburgh when I
Yeah.
was running that transfer station.
I've got, in the reduce invasive species one.
Yep.
So I wanted to add develop and fund and institute. I'm not sure if you need to say all three of those, but develop and fund an invasive species management plan. Cause I think it's like, you just gotta get like a pesticide licensed person to
Yeah.
really deal with Japanese
Yeah,
knotweed.
yeah.
Maybe it's a client,
Yeah.
climate core volunteers or whatever it is, but
Yeah, it can't
I
be just
feel like
cut
it needs
because
to be, have more of an active message here.
Well, the Brunswick Topsham Land Trust
Sure.
is doing 2 forums on that in the area. I'm training people. I'm been to one, I'm gonna go to another one.
Yeah.
I can't.
yeah, but that's
Who
not,
would do it in this town? Who has the ability in the staff to enter the parks? and
Well,
Rec, I guess.
if we're funding it, though, they can look into actually, doing
Maybe
it.
Parks and Rec, I bet she might be interested.
yeah, well, they're gonna need money if they're gonna do anything. And then the other thing I wanted to say was the implement a waste reduction program at town hall. Why aren't we saying at all departments? Like, why would Public Works get out of this? Why would fire department? Why would anyone else get out of
Good for
it?
you.
I think and I can't remember, Sky, if I said town, I think I put town hall in there just because I thought that the town would be more, that would go over better with the town, but I don't know if you have thoughts about that.
We didn't really know what you meant by that, quite honestly. I think we thought, we'd be interested in seeing what that could be, but we weren't quite sure. I don't really think, you could maybe change it. Without knowing exactly what it is, it's a little hard to say if there's any reason to keep it to just one building or not. I think it doesn't need to be town hall, it'd probably be municipal complex at the very least, because that includes public safety,
yeah,
as
And
well.
the fire department.
yeah, you could
Yes.
say waste reduction program at the.
And maybe you could say like,
Town
starting
facilities.
at the complex, if it works well here, we can put it out. I don't know what
I
it
don't know,
looks
I
like,
feel
so
like
it's hard to say.
That limits the opportunities because, every department they could be scanning things and going all electronic in their files. They could create like a waste oil boiler or whatever. I just feel like everyone should have some stake in the matter. It doesn't mean that everyone's doing the
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah.
But, why aren't we all trying?
Maybe.
Probably what you could even do as sort of a first step, and maybe we can, this could be sort of one action, is just understanding what the waste practices are of municipal operations. That's probably because with the greenhouse gas inventory, that you're not able to really capture that. So, coming up with, doing basically like an inventory of waste practices in the town would probably be the first step, honestly. And then from that, coming up with a waste reduction plan. So I could, maybe,
I would just
I
say
could
waste
ch-
reduction programs and leave it.
sure.
be.
Yeah,
Could we go back just for a minute? I'm not sure what the protocol is here for interrupting. I'd like to go back to where we were talking at the very top about the nature-based things and giving some examples of those. I'd be a little reluctant to have no mow may included in there. I've done a lot of reading about that, and there's some serious disagreements about how valuable that is. So rather than create something that could become point of contention, to not have it specifically given as an example.
Okay.
yeah, we can just talk about reducing mowing or something like that.
Yeah, just reducing
yeah,
the ones
yeah.
in habitat. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
yeah, I've read I read some stuff that said.
Yeah,
that-
same.
Yeah,
I know mow a lot longer than just May.
yeah, I know, yeah.
That's one of the points that's made, that if you're going to do no mow, you really have to do it for a longer period of time. And believe me, that's not gonna fly at the Highlands.
Yeah, yeah.
Great. Any other thoughts on this page before we move to the next one?
No, fine.
Okay.
Just the, develop an outreach program for farmers about water use and stuff. It
Yeah.
seems like a subject that's already extremely well covered. You know, MOFCA extension, CS. You know, all the farms are participating in programs, you know, conservation programs. So is that something that, you know, it just seemed like duplication.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I defer to you on this, and you know, what you think would be useful for the farmers. I think the reason I put this in here was just the concerns about particularly bison runoff from bisons into the cat ants. And, you know, if there's just some way that the town could like provide some more outreach. I mean, I know that's sort of one specific farm that's a concern. But you know, maybe an outreach program isn't really the right way to do that. I think that when we were going over these with Sky and Mark, I think that sort of doing sort of outreach and education felt like a kind of an easier first step, as opposed to kind of doing any type of kind of rules or policies. So that's why we put that in here. But yeah, if you have other thoughts about what would be a good solution there, I am all ears.
I feel like if we're assessing the impacts, somebody's gonna find out that there's too much nitrogen and they're gonna get DEP and DACF and all of the legal beagles involved to actually do something about it. So I don't really think that the town needs to do anything.
Okay.
That's just opinion.
So accessing is.
If you wanna really get
sufficient
it
enough, yeah.
action done, then you need to provide data and you need to tell the
Yeah,
authorities.
right, and I noticed that there is an unharvested grassy border along the cat ants at the base of the hill. I mean, they don't plow right up to this creek, but
Yeah, I
in
mean,
places, yeah.
you know, I don't know all the ins and outs of that farm, but I do know that they, you know, partner with NRCS,
Ah,
Natural Resources,
as I did,
whatever it is.
Conservation Service, yeah.
They've implemented a lot of stuff there. I'm sure it's not perfect.
Yeah.
You know, there's seasons where things get out of hand, but
Yeah, they're working, they
I
understand.
don't think there's anything we're gonna be teaching them about what to do that's gonna get done.
Thank you. Yeah, you know, because you,
That's how I would say
Okay.
it.
They're on the right. they're, you know,
That's
they're-
it. That's good.
yeah, thank you.
All right, so just take out the developed outreach program. I think that makes sense. Just leave it to assess the impacts. All right, moving to the next page. This is mostly about sort of storms and disaster preparedness. Any thoughts about this one?
Oh, I'm sorry, can we go back to the very last one
Yeah.
on the before? Develop a system to incorporate climate change code benefits such as heat relief, carbon sequestration, flood storage into conservation decision-making processes. I like the concept, but drafting this and implementing it, all of this sounds really complicated and I'm just not, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it probably would be somewhat complicated. I mean, to sort of come up with metrics to kind of evaluate. I mean, there's a range of things you could do. It could start with sort of just a philosophy for the Conservation Commission and the Land Trust to kind of, you know, think beyond just habitat benefits to sort of other climate related benefits. So that would be kind of one end of the spectrum. And then I think the other end of the spectrum would be, you know, having some sort of metrics or some sort of evaluation system that would look at co-benefits. And I think that would probably be more complicated. So we could change this from develop a system to maybe, consider climate change co-benefits.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it's something that both, the conservation, the town does and Brunswick House and Land Trust both have sort of strategic plans for how we're gonna conserve land. And the climate benefits, especially some of the stuff that you've developed with this vulnerability assessment, hasn't really been incorporated, into those plans explicitly. So, fortunately, there's a lot of overlap, but still, we could do an explicit, we could actually make that effort to explicitly include that stuff. And we're hoping to redo the National Areas Plan soon, so. And I don't know how often Brunswick Town and Land Trust redoes their.
We just did the 5-year strategic plan.
Oh, you just did,
And
so
things
yeah.
are a lot more integrated. Climate change is
Yeah, okay, yeah,
elevated a lot.
yeah, I haven't seen it yet, so yeah, okay.
So
Yeah, it's something
I think
it's doing, but maybe just
on the road.
continue to incorporate or, yeah, I don't know. I think maybe not develop a system, but say incorporate climate change benefits in existing national areas planning or something like that.
Yeah,
I think that sounds much better, because I'm just reading this thinking like, this is a general public, they're trying to figure out what the heck we're talking about. And maybe we're already totally doing this and this list is super long and it's just like, is anyone really gonna
Yeah.
wanna weigh in on this many things?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I'm like,
It's a good-
"Oh, like, I like all this stuff,
Right.
but if it's
Yeah.
already
Oh, turn
happening
off.
somewhere else, like, why are
Yeah.
we?
Yep.
But if it's not really happening, but it said that it could happen somewhere else, maybe we need to reiterate that it's important, so I get it.
Yeah,
But this is just kind of a long list, so I've been
Yeah,
a
it
little.
is a lot.
Yeah.
on it.
I know this is X them off because I think, and I think we did cut quite a few off. I cut some off and then Sky and Mark also cut some off. But it's still a pretty long list and I recognize that. So I think, if there's ones that don't feel good, like we already talked about, I think it makes sense to take them off the list.
I would suggest taking that one off.
Yeah,
I second you, yeah.
okay.
What Brunswick
just
did,
take it off totally. Yeah, that's fine.
just briefly, what
Well, it's something that's come up with the mapping that they've done, so anyway, but it's, yeah. As long as I'm chair, yes, it'll get incorporated in the next plan,
I just
if
want
we ever
to,
do one.
I want to throw out one way of looking at all these details so that each person coming to this event wouldn't have to look at all the details. What Brunswick did is they took the big green highlighted areas and let people put the tags, the circles that they prioritized on that. And then they would go to a table that had all the details of that, and then they would prioritize the ones they were interested in only. So these were all organized under the larger categories. There's a health and safety table, there's a, buildings table, there's a human infrastructure. That's another way of doing it, so that you get people looking at the things that they want to work on, figuring that are.
So I think, I'm not sure, that is sort of the plan, is that, so for example, these two blue boards, I mean, I understand these are there's more specific actions on the two of these, but this would be one area and people could go look at these. And then this, environment and waste management would be in a separate area and people could go look at those. So maybe I just don't understand exactly what we did want to, have them sort of separated into categories and have them separated around the room so that people could go to different areas. And not necessarily have to go look at all of them if they
Right.
weren't interested in them.
In the introduction, say here, list the different categories and say, please,
Yeah.
the areas that you think will make the biggest difference and that you're mostly interested in looking at more details about. Something like that in your introduction would be helpful.
So
Yeah.
you're saying that we won't vote on these specific items, but more of the broader category? Is that what you're
Well,
saying? Like we're voting on reduce invasive species put a sticker there, or am I
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
going?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Start with that. And then if you want to do more detail, go back, just
Yeah.
highlight
But
the individual
just-
steps in the
But
areas.
the
that-
idea, Julia, is that we just put dots on the green, you know, like, we're talking about, are you voting to protect clean water and healthy ecosystems? You put a dot in there, and those are the examples to help you understand what that category means. Is that, am I not getting this?
No, I would actually, I don't know.
You want, I mean, this is
I
just
mean,
a
I
lot
think-
to read.
I know, but it's not like, I mean, again, I think if people just focus on the areas that they're most interested in.
Yeah.
Then, you know, hopefully there's enough people there, and we can, you know, people can look at, you know, one or two areas maybe while they're there, but they don't have to look at everything.
I think it's really important to have the detail because, you know, there's only so much we can do under certain categories, like maybe someone really cares about protecting, like, or, well, this isn't, we're just looking at this one, maybe they really care about protecting clean water, but like the ability of the town doesn't align with how they feel about that. So I think it's really important to show these specific examples so they can understand specifically what we're saying we can do under that header. To me, I get a lot of questions from people about things the town is doing, and they're usually pretty specific, honestly, you know, with Recode, it's usually specific questions. Oftentimes I get people asking for more specifics, so my gut instinct is to make sure that people still have the specifics, and maybe at the beginning during a presentation saying, these are the like 5 categories or something, you know. What Nancy said, like, kind of like, you know, you don't have to go to all of them. If you think that one of these doesn't matter, don't vote for it, but I wouldn't want to make it so people are just voting for kind of general ideas, because it might lead to them thinking they're voting for something, but then what the municipal capacity is under that isn't what they thought. That would be my concern.
Or the cost might be, you know, unattainable.
And so Sky and I also talked about how to structure the voting, and Sky's suggestion, which I think was a good one, is that we'll give everyone a limited number of votes, of sticky dots, and they can use those however they want. So I think, and my other experience with this is that people tend to kind of, you know, you'll give people some instructions, but I think it's possible that people might vote on some of these individual actions, but people might also vote on kind of the overall headings. And I think, you know, that's both useful information that we can use. But that was kind of what I was expecting people might end up doing, is that, you know, they'll kind of like leaving it a little bit more open for people to kind of put their sticky dots where they feel, you know, where their own priorities are. And yeah, I think to Sky's point about adding in more specificity, the idea there was that this list that we're putting in front of people, well, there is a lot of information to read. This is also going to be sort of as close to the final list as possible of what's going to be in that final climate action plan. You know, these are the actual actions that are going to be in that climate action plan. So it's not like people are kind of voting on these general ideas, and then what's going into the climate action plan as sort of specific actions is, you know, kind of like this black box. So they're actually getting to vote on the, you know, the specific action. So that was kind of our idea with having it be a bit more detailed.
Could I make sure that I'm understanding? If people are voting, would they actually be voting on the individual items under, say, protect clean water and healthy ecosystems?
That's what that's the instruction that I'm going to give people in the introduction. So that's what I'm going to tell people to do. If you guys if you don't like that idea, or you think it would be better for people to have to vote on kind of the overall idea, we can still talk about that, but that's what we were thinking.
My suggestion would be, and this is from experience in working with this kind of thing, both as a teacher and as a volunteer, is that to instruct them to choose the among the items under environment and waste management at that next level, but that the individual things be listed because they give good examples, but not to vote specifically on those things, just to have them see what might be involved in that. And that might also encourage them to, as you say, leave notes. You know, if they think something's been left out or think something should be taken off, they could say that. That's just how I would look at it. I think it's a little confusing for people to be thinking about, well, because it gives them so many things to choose from. I feel that there's just a lot of things there under environment and waste management. I haven't counted all of them. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then there's all the other things as well. So
Yeah, I get your point. That maybe it would be easier for people if they have, you know, they have all these sticky dots and they're going to put them somewhere. If they're sort of just thinking about these overall headings, it might be a little bit easier, but then they also come in with the understanding that these are the actions that are included within that strategy.
exactly, and especially if you're going to be limiting the number of dots, I think it's easier to have a slightly higher level than all those individual things.
I just wanted to
Julia,
chime in a little bit if I could. I get the tension between there's a lot to read here, but for a climate action plan, like it may the town may not be able to implement all of the things even under protect clean water and healthy ecosystems. So yeah, so like being able to prioritize which of those things you think are most important, I think that's important in this process for us to come out with, an action plan with specifics.
Then what about having instead 2 colors of dots, where you choose using the red dots in the higher level, and then within those higher levels, use your other color to say what you think is more important within
That's
that.
exactly what Brunswick did.
Victoria, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I just have a question, again, a process question, but the way I'm thinking about this is when this gets, we're gonna prioritize at a certain level, and then really people need to see need to have a little more fleshed out information and a sense of, maybe this is gonna be too detailed, but a sense of cost or magnitude of the strategy, and that maybe later on in the process, they can sort of weigh in a little more on the strategies, on the, not the big headings, but the specific strategies. But is that outside of the scope of what you were planning?
So yes and no. I think there's this master list of strategies that we've been working off of that we refined to get to this list here. And there's a lot of other information included in that, like some cost considerations, impact considerations, sort of co-benefits examples. And so we're going to have that at the workshop. The project team, Sky and Meg and I will have that. So I thought about, whether it made sense to include more information on here, and I decided not to. And then I'm hoping I'll tell people to come and ask us if they want more information about a specific strategy, and then we can sort of go look it up for them, or refer back to that, just so that, because I didn't want to this already felt like a lot of information, and so I didn't want to put too much information, but I also want people to know that we can get more information for them if they need it. How does that sound?
No, I agree. You don't want too much information here. I guess I was thinking there was a next step later on in the process.
I see what you're saying.
Where, like the classic sort of work plan timeline where there'd be more information and then a further filtering, but maybe not. I couldn't remember what other steps in the process there were.
For FBE's process, what we're going to be doing is taking the input from the workshop and using that to refine this to sort of a shorter list of strategies. And then the final matrix that we're going to provide is going to have some additional information. It's not going to be sort of a full-on kind of work plan type of thing. But I think we'll try to include some information about kind of intersection with social vulnerability. I don't know that we'll do this for every action, but if there's kind of a relevant committee or person who would sort of lead that, like the Conservation Commission or the Energy Committee, we'll note that. And then we'll also provide this master matrix as, you know, to help provide some of that additional information. So there will be some, but it might not be to the same level as what you're picturing.
Yeah, no, that all makes sense. Now I have a clearer picture of sort of the steps there, so, and I think it's a good idea to kind of have back pocket information for people who want to dig deeper or have questions about, well, how much would something like that cost? Or, because I can see some people maybe asking those questions, not that we have to have all the answers, but, you know, to be able to reply with some level of detail, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yes, that's the plan. All right. So just going to the last 2 pages, did anybody have any thoughts about these strategies?
Last 2 pages, health and safety
Health and safety and town leadership.
and town leadership.
I had on the education and outreach one, or outreach and education one, the first one, develop an annual outreach plan about the ticks and whatnot. I wrote, find grant funding for developing outreach, blah, blah, blah. I thought we
That's
should add.
great.
This is just one of those things where it's like, get an intern or get, it just,
Yeah.
I don't know. It just, again, there's so many agencies and departments out there that should be doing this work. So we should hire them to do it with a grant.
Yeah.
I'd like to, under the prepare for more frequent heat waves, I'd like to suggest to people, lower tech ways to cool off, like having a fan going, having a wet sheet put up and a fan going over it, which is used a lot in India when the temperatures are up around 100, and it takes heat out of the room. Closing curtains on the sunny side of the building, having lots of water, drinking more water, just obvious things like this are gonna help people survive.
Maybe we could add as just sort of a more general, you know, to kind of generalize what you were just saying. And this provide information about access to green spaces and then maybe like additional resources about, you know, other ways to stay cool or something like that.
Yeah, provide information about, using exactly that same phrase, provide information about access to low tech ways. I really like that one.
Yep, I can add that.
We don't need air conditioners yet, Maine. We can move fans over wet sheets and cool off. We
Right.
can open the windows on the cool side of the house.
I had a question, oh, sorry, I had a question about the last one, which I think is not on the screen. Where was that one about?
This one,
Yeah,
Yeah, the
tourism
last,
industry.
I didn't really understand what that meant.
Yeah. This is one, and actually I'm gonna pull up this. This is a pretty general one. And this was also specifically geared towards some towns that had like beaches with lots of tourists. So it was really about thinking about like the parking lots and making sure that that type of infrastructure was resilient. And so I don't know if this is necessarily, especially the tourism industry part of this, I don't know if that feels very relevant to Topsham. I don't know if there's a strong tourism industry. My impression is not really, but I don't know. If you guys have
Well,
thoughts
I
about
mean,
that.
like, for instance, the swinging bridge, okay, there are a lot of tourists who go walk on the swinging bridge, but how would that, you know, I'm trying to picture how this would relate to an asset like that. And I don't know
Yeah,
if other people would make that connection
Invasive
either.
species management and erosion control
Yeah,
of that.
Yeah.
they're covered elsewhere though.
Right.
I just couldn't really, I couldn't
Yeah.
connect this with Topsham, but I'm just not
I wonder
thinking of examples.
if this is a good one to cut, since Julia told us to cut them. Mark and I left it in because we went, well, it's not harming anything. We left in ones that
Yeah.
didn't have any negative kind of impacts really, but we also didn't really know what it would be.
Yeah, I would cut it
Which
because I
one
don't
are we
know.
looking at?
the-
The bigger.
People
Very
just
loud.
drive through.
Tourism. Tourism.
Yeah, they just drive through, yeah.
Oh, yeah, take it out. Okay, good.
Yeah, that sounds, and that was one where I kind of, same as Sky and Mark, I kind of left that in because I didn't want to, I didn't want to take it out if it felt like it was relevant. But yeah, I that was kind of my feeling too, as I was going through these. So I think it's a good one to cut.
Yeah, there is some tourism, but it's basically people who have houses here who use them in the summer, I mean, but it's a very small percentage, so.
Not one of the top priorities, at least, anyways.
Unlike others.
Great. Well, thank you all. I know that was kind of tedious to go through all of them, but I really appreciate that input. I think that was really helpful for me. So I'm going to incorporate that and sort of finalize this list for the workshop. And I'll send that around to you guys when that's done. And yeah, any other kind of final thoughts or anything else anyone wanted to share with me before I finish up and pop off?
Are you going to incorporate our comments in the draft vulnerability assessment at some point?
Yes, I have reviewed all your comments, and I'm gonna start working on incorporating those over the next couple of weeks. My plan is to have the final draft done for the workshop. So that's the plan. I am going to have a printed out copy at the workshop. So yeah, that's the plan. There might be some formatting that we might have to do after the workshop. But yeah, I will be incorporating those.
That's for the plan that we had already looked at.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
When, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead, but when do you want feedback on the social vulnerability assessment draft, Meg? You didn't,
I could use that.
I think you said November 8th and the,
that's for the
If
greenhouse.
it could be within that same time frame, that would be great.
Isn't the greenhouse gas one due November 8th too?
Yeah,
So comments on the social vulnerability by November 8th.
And the greenhouse gas
Okay.
assessment.
What,
These all just,
when was that come out? Haven't seen that yet. Oh, no.
it,
It
can
was
you reshare the
hyper-linked in
greenhouse
the-
gas, email with
Or was that earlier?
Nancy,
Was that earlier?
Meg? I don't know, I saw something came out and John and Nancy weren't involved in the email and then I forwarded it and it might.
Yeah, that was the social vulnerability. I got that yesterday.
But you don't,
I
don't have
don't
the
remember
greenhouse
seeing a
gas.
recent greenhouse gas assessment.
It's sort of like
I
two.
think that was like,
Oh, okay, I think I got that. If it was a while ago,
yeah, it was a couple weeks ago.
okay. All right, I'll look back for it.
all right, so we'll, show up like at least 30 minutes early for the meeting to set up the food and whatnot. I don't really have anything else to.
And
Play
planning
for
board, planning
Julia's.
departments bring in the food
Yeah.
again,
Yeah, we
okay,
can't really pay someone back, so I'll
Okay.
get those.
all right.
So same
Great.
deal.
All my neighbors are gonna get these cards.
Thanks, everybody. All right, I'll see you in a few weeks.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Nice job.
Good work. Yep. Jackie, come visit us. Come to the 18th. We want to see you in person, not just on screen.
no, I don't like to drive as it's getting toward dusk. That's kind of why. I mean, I'm actually walking distance from the town office.
Well, I am too. We should be walking. Yeah.
All right, Meg, how about do we need to discuss anything about the social vulnerability assessment that we basically just got? Besides that, we need to review it by November 8th.
No, I'll just kind of bring everybody up to speed and I'll just hit the high points. So, I just wanted to let everybody know too that Jessica Brunicini, who has been working on this, needed to rotate off the project because she had started a new job and it was too challenging to bring this project from her old job to her new job. So she did a terrific job and we're grateful for what she did. But you know, nobody can do that. So, MCOG is willing to kind of pick up the ball. We can, finish this at no cost to the town. I think there's a few other bits of data that we could work into it, and, you know, come up with some findings and conclusions, and things like that. So, to hit the high points, I'm gonna just assume everybody's familiar with the, you know, social vulnerability and why it's in the assessment. And look at the key findings. You know, there's no surprises. I think that the priority populations are seniors, low-income households, children and youth, people with disabilities or medical conditions, and the residents of mobile home parks.
And even self-employed people, which is, we have a high percentage in this
Yeah,
town,
yeah.
which is interesting.
Mhm. The common climate stressors were residents identified power outages, flooding, and disease carrying pests as the primary climate related concerns for the vulnerable groups. And then, you know, just how social vulnerability fits into climate action planning. It's basically that it's important to ask, you know, for the strategies that we're looking at, who does this strategy serve, and will it address the needs of vulnerable populations? And Jessica did weigh in on all of the strategies that that Julia put forward to make sure that strategies that benefited vulnerable populations were in there. So she's had that hand in that. So I don't know if anybody had a chance to take a look at it or have any questions. If you do, fire them. I don't know if I can answer them, but I can get answers. And then you can send me things, comments in writing.
Well, there's a few places where, you know, like add language about why self-employed are vulnerable, you know, things like that. So we actually have to, I don't know, think about that,
Yeah, where she has put more language in.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah. The trailer, we have a pretty high percentage of people in mobile homes. And there are flooding issues in one of them, and other ones on a fairly high point. When I talked about the fact that they're also near the Cadence River, they didn't think that that was a problem, but they don't have, you know, any curbs on the, it's not all paved road. It's gotten more paved, but they're not curbs on the road. And this is the owner who doesn't think climate change is happening. So. And then the other mobile home that has the high water level, those are pretty long-standing residents and a whole variety of abilities, some of them more like houses. But you've spoken with him, and did you make any, is he even acknowledging that the one out 196, I'm sorry, names don't come to me, the guy who has a lot, the largest trailer park in town.
Yeah, Maynard. Andy.
Maynard,
Yeah.
Maynard, yeah. Did he show any interest at all in what we're doing here?
Not really.
Yeah, same as the guy across the highway.
Right.
Yeah, not an issue. I'm building, I'm making more house lots. I'm making a good living off it. And
Well, they have to, you know, they have to go through the planning process to make any changes or additions or, you know, new developments.
thank
So,
goodness, yes.
you know,
Yeah.
you've got to assume that the planning board is looking at things like that,
Yeah.
I guess, right, Scott?
Maynard, yeah, has to go through planning board. Sandlands is doing an expansion based on previously approved. Mobile homes are a little different than regular subdivisions, but,
Mhm.
my understanding is that at least, well, I can't speak a whole lot. Maynard's recently went through a huge expansion that went through planning board and a site location of development. So I think that one's decent. I mean, mobile homes don't have basements, so that does help with groundwater. Sandlands does seem to try to keep everything good there, you know, so maybe because of believe in climate change, if there's impacts, he responds.
Deal with it, yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's really all I can say about it.
Is he moving the land around a lot? Is he you know, yeah, well, you don't know. I mean, yeah, he is.
Mobile home parks have protections under state law.
Have self-protection
They have protections somewhat under state law.
for erosion and stability and.
No, they have protections about what we can do with mobile home parks. They're, you know, the town can't dictate everything that happens. in
Yeah,
mobile
of
home
course,
parks.
of course, but I'm just wondering how much, if he's been moving lots of land, soil in order to make paths for those, what is the erosion potential there? And
All right, I think we're digressing and
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
gonna have a long meeting, so I'm
I
gonna
beg your
move on
pardon.
to greenhouse gas assessment. If anyone has any questions, stuff's due November 8th, so please review it. Meg, do you have anything you wanna let us know about that? I know, Victor, you did ask questions already, but
Yeah,
those were kind of discussed.
yeah, I think, the conclusion I think on mine is basically that last paragraph needs to be. There's a couple, but there's another line here is, it says, actually, where was it now? I lost it. By keeping, yeah, it says here, by keeping the recs, Topsham helps increase demand for renewable energy. We're not keeping the recs, so.
No,
think-
I know, and it was just it was, something kind of beyond my expertise. And as I wrote it and I put it in there, because I thought, all right, they don't because it's not local, because that was my understanding. But in doing more research on it and getting the PPA and talking to the seller and, just trying to understand the market of commercial solar farms a little bit better, the
Yeah.
town does not retain the RECs. And so unfortunately.
Yeah, no, and so we should definitely make that clear here, and then I
Yeah.
like your explanation about why, I mean, I think your explanation about why that we're not counting, it as solar power because of this, but I think it's not clear to me that the town isn't retaining those from the wording, so that's all I think I need there, is just clear that the town is not retaining the recs and therefore blah, 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 so.
Exactly right.
I have just a small question, Meg. When I was reading about Topson's community-wide emissions, the number, for me, I wanted to put it in context, like what are some of our neighbors, contributing for just comparison? I was just curious if we could throw in like, by comparison, Brunswick's number is this, if these exist for some of the towns that have already done this. Just to give context for people, do we know any other?
I can
Numbers
see,
the region?
if Brunswick is, I can check Brunswick. a
If they're
lot of-
measured the same way, I guess if it's, if they didn't
Yeah.
use the same measurement tools, then it would be apples and oranges, yeah.
But they did use the ICLEI protocol, so, yeah, I can find out that. Mhm.
Sometimes there's a little competition with towns and like, ooh, Brunswick's is is lower, maybe we should work harder.
We're so close together, it makes sense, it's all the same,
Right.
we're sharing.
I would imagine, well, I was thinking that
You're gonna have to scale it based on the population
Yeah.
though, because.
Yeah, that's true too, actually, the population,
Yeah,
maybe it's,
Brunswick's more than.
Never
twice the
mind.
population, so.
Well,
I just,
Bath,
Looking at Bath,
Bath is the same size,
population.
and
Yeah,
it has the
so
same
Bath-
size.
Bath would be a great comparison, yeah.
And they're very much on sustainability, they're really
Bath is
working
the
hard on
city.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would need to be,
if it's
it would
easy
need
to.
to be a community of, roughly the same size. And I think it
Yeah.
also needs to be a community with a kind of a highway, going through, and maybe so that maybe Route 1 counts for Bath, because I think that contributes to Topsom's greenhouse gas
It's
emissions.
no big deal, for me, I was
I think it's
like,
a
I
good
wanted to
idea.
know, so, I wonder what our neighbors are,
No.
how we compare to them,
I think
but.
other people would wanna know that too, yeah,
I don't know, Freeport might be another possibility too.
it's a little bigger. I don't see.
No, I think it's about
Is
the
it
same
same?
population.
Is it?
I think it's roughly.
Okay, and they've got the traffic, that we've got more of the traffic we've got.
Yeah.
Shocking. That might be a better comparison.
Any other questions on that? I haven't reviewed it, so I'm sorry, Meg, I've got nothing to say, but I look forward to reviewing it.
Okay. Let me know.
All right, see you in a few weeks then.
All right, am I good to go?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
Well,
Yeah.
All right, thanks, you guys. I look forward to
Yeah.
seeing everybody in person.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's just keep going down the old business, because now we gotta ramp up for this meeting, and so do we have the crier ad? Did that go out?
It was
Okay,
sent to Pam, yeah, and she confirmed she had it, so, yeah.
great. And, we've passed these around while folks were talking, if you can try and get these out to the places you've done in the past.
Yeah.
I'll send out an email to find out who might be interested in tabling again at the transfer station and or library. I'll do that on the side.
Does anybody want one of these sheets to hand out to neighbors? Cut them up in sections to remind neighbors, or any other groups that you're inviting? Yeah, I.
Anyhow, they're right here. You can grab one before you leave.
That's good.
So we had done this email outreach, so I will go back to revisit that. Remember, we sent one out to I think it was, I sent one to select board, and then there's some verbiage we sent to the committees. So I'm gonna work on that with you, Sky, on the side, just revamp whatever it was we did last time.
Right, yes.
So that was committees and the officials, I'll share it out with everybody else, so if you want to, you're on Brunswick Top Zone Land Trust, if there's other entities you all are dealing with, I think I also sent it to the library.
Did you guys get the digital versions of those outreach materials?
No.
Okay,
no, if
I'll
you could
upload
share,
those,
that'd be great.
Yeah.
I've had a crazy couple of months, so I just. Specific reminders are great.
Sorry, I didn't do draft all that to go review before now, but anyhow. So then number 5, Sky or someone, I don't know if hey Jackie, do you happen to have the agenda handy? Could you, well, actually, no, she'd have to share a screen.
No, I
Can
actually
somebody,
have it, I actually have it.
Great. We're now
Let me
gonna go over
Share my screen so Jackie can see it.
reviewing that
Okay.
annual update to select board. I think you guys already had a look at it last meeting
Yeah.
when I wasn't there, and there's an update to add Sky
We
instead of,
tabled it at the last meeting,
Yeah,
because
I don't-
we ran out of time.
okay.
When do they need to have that?
Yeah, the annual update to select board hyperlink. Number 5, yeah. Perfect.
Oh,
Okay, so every year at this time, we draft up a thing that tells the select board what we've been up to, and so that was this, and then it's also, adding into the whole terms and conditions conversation they wanna have with us. So basically, I have taken the 5 or 6 action items that we had blessed by them back in November 2022. Wrote what's going on with them, ongoing, on hold, completed, whatever, it's just
Mhm.
the update.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, thanks, God, keep going. Everything that we've done, I mean, this is like nothing new, like we've all
right.
we know all this stuff. And then towards the end is, so we had kind of this statement, I think, in the previous one, but I don't think that, that went into the last report for whatever reason.
Hmm.
Um, So this here is,
happened?
you know, we've discussed several times how we're saving the town a ton of money. It should be captured, it should be used to reinvest in these cost saving measures that we're totally doing here. So it's more of a statement about, you know, this is what we're doing for you, and we think we're doing, and we've definitely gotten plenty of praise, especially when Derek was here, about how active our committee was. And I think that we've proven ourselves over the 4 years that we've been a formal committee versus like all the stuff that we were doing before we were even here. You know, just to kind of, you know, bolster what we're up to and why it's important, and that we want them to continue on with this type of work, regardless of whatever they want to do with us come the end of the term or whatever.
The numbers don't add up there. They're close. If you add up the 70,000, 38 and 33, it doesn't come up to 165. Is there something else you're thinking about that you added that was a cost that we made it?
Oh, it's
Investment
over
is a
5
saving.
years, and it's not all the same to add up like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you estimated that 165 was accurate.
Yeah, that's what we got when we were first doing all this stuff. I went back to every single historic thing we've ever done and found the cost savings that we advocated
Okay,
to the
okay,
select
wow.
board about whatever these things
Yeah,
were.
okay, so that's accurate. Okay.
Yeah. So then the milestones and strategic plan part, just reminds them, we took them 4. And so what I thought would be yes, definitely. So what I drafted for a proposal is that we would be open to a workshop. That's how we've done this in the past with them, like it's a meeting. And that we would be interested in having a workshop to revisit the guiding principle, the mission, all that stuff below. This is just a cut and paste. That's not anything new. And outline a work plan after we completed the climate action plan in June of 2025. So the timing being that, they're gonna decide if they even want this plan to go forward by April, for sure. It's gotta be on the warrant, yada, yada. So who knows? I mean, if we're not gonna put this on the warrant, like, we will need to talk about maybe this before June, but let's hope not. Then you'll have May meeting. Now, May meeting, I think we're gonna have a meeting before the May meeting. Like just before the May meeting. So we will, be hopefully out there promoting it for May meeting through that meeting as well. And then once we know if it's passed or not. I mean, even if it doesn't pass, I guess we could still be kind of discussing
What
like
the next
what
steps.
the fallout was or
Yeah.
what we would like to move forward, because as we talked about tonight, that's all that we're doing is we are prioritizing all these things,
Okay.
So
The whole town meeting is going to vote on the climate action plan. What is the select? or
the select board has to decide that they want to put it forward to the people.
They have to choose
Yeah.
to put it
on the
out.
warrant. Yeah.
So do
Yeah.
we,
Everything that appears on the
Yeah.
warrant has to go through the select.
so do we need to go to a meeting of the select board to advocate for this?
Yeah, there'll be places along the
Yeah,
spectrum where,
yeah.
Yeah, they have a public meeting for the warrant, every year,
Yeah.
like a month before the
A
meeting.
month before, that would be the
In
time
April sometime,
to
yeah.
speak up,
Yeah.
especially if
It's-
Sky
or-
has heard
March.
complaints and
Even before
grumbles
that.
that maybe it's not likely to be put on.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't think it's gonna be.
We'll
tough.
communicate with you guys if there are
Yeah.
issues with it, but I don't think that meeting would be when you find them, they would come out sooner.
I would think
most
so.
likely, so,
Right,
not
okay.
just procedure.
And at this point, they haven't read a draft, so they don't.
yeah,
They
we're
don't
not
know what's
there.
going on, so, yeah.
After this next meeting, we may have
Other
a
than
better
than
feel.
Ryan here.
Okay, just
Oh,
checking the
yeah.
political winds here.
So basically, this is what I'm proposing that we send. I don't know if we've met whatever this request was from the select board exactly or not, but that's
Yeah, so the select board is asking, I think the chair who's done it historically, but the other members that come to come to the select board meeting and talk about what they want their charge and their term to be. They're asking all ad hoc committees to do that, so I think this outlines it. You just might want to, yeah, I think it covers it pretty well, and I think Mark has seen this potentially, or you two talked about it, and I think that covered it about fine. it seems about in line with what I've heard, but yeah, I think November, like the first November select board meeting is when they're expecting you to go.
Okay.
Okay, I was hoping that this would just be passed along to them.
No, it's a in-person meeting.
We'll see if I can make it. Because I feel like this, this work has been a lot and I'm definitely gonna be stepping down after this is passed at town meeting, so, my take on this is,
We're almost
this
there.
is like, there's not much to talk about until we have that,
Well, they just,
plan.
but we have the draft plan, and so this is,
Well, we don't really have.
yeah, we don't have
anything
the
yet.
last public input part.
Yeah.
But so that, just tell them that that's what we're waiting for, and that we've worked really hard, and we've got, what we think is a good plan, we've had good consultants, just toot our horns a little, is what needs to happen, I think. And say that we're eager to get the final public input on, as to which things they want to prioritize.
All right, well then, that's what's going in their packet,
That's good.
and so then I guess we're done with old business, so back to public comment, yeah.
So, so you were just, wanting confirmation that this should be sent to, I mean, I read it, I didn't have any
Yeah, I guess we should vote on it, 'cause we didn't
suggestions.
vote on it,
Okay,
Okay.
yeah,
Oh.
any edits?
Oh, boy.
Looks fun.
I make a motion that we adopt this annual update to the select board as written.
Good. I second
I'll
it.
second up,
Okay.
Nancy
Vote.
seconds.
All in favor?
Okay.
Okay. Okay. No public comment. The next thing was, voting on the September meeting minutes. Fine. Jackie, you have any comments?
Nope, I was fine with them.
Any motions?
I move that we accept the minutes.
Oh,
That's right.
Second. All in favor?
Aye,
No.
okay.
Any staff updates?
I think you'd asked for an update on the recording conversation that happened, and all that really came of it is that they wanted to reiterate the select board that meetings should be recorded when practicable. I've been recording these meetings mostly when I can. There's been a couple that have been missed, but as you see, I'm recording this one. And I've forgotten a couple of times, quite honestly, in rushes to get the meeting started. So I did want to say, if you guys notice that the meeting is not recorded, please tell me.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's not purposeful. It just means that I was rushing to get the Zoom going and forgot.
Oh, yeah.
So, they're being posted to YouTube so people can look at them, but that's not really any different than how it's been in the past.
Okay. They're really hard to find on YouTube.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you search for, climate, whatever, energy committee or even the planning board, you get the ones in 2007 or
Okay.
something like that. I
We
mean,
have,
not really.
we have
not that old.
playlists, which
Yeah.
is usually how I'm
Yeah.
moving around it, but I'm not a big YouTube person.
Yeah, it's,
Maybe there's something that can be done, but
yeah, I don't know either. But I just, I would have to go through a really long list or try to refine the search somehow. and-
yeah.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe something about adding information about when you post it, I don't know. Anyway, that's another issue.
Okay, so last agenda item is voting on our chair, vice chair, and secretary. So let's open up the nominations for chair. Are there any nominations?
I'll nominate that chair.
I'll second.
Are you willing?
Okay, well, like, I'm gonna reiterate this. I am stepping down. I'm stepping off the committee. I am finding my priorities in life and my, I hope that the new leadership forges a path forward as to whatever y'all want to do. you know, I'm kind of in favor of finding a new chair at this point, so they are, you know, still have me until that time to look at things, but, basically the timing of, you know, hopefully this passing, you know, will give you guys, you know, like a month or maybe even before that to start drafting up what y'all want to do, but that's kind of where I'm at with this is I think that the next level needs to come from others. So I do have some reservation about that, but I'm, you know, would be here to support somebody else. But it's, you know, 4 years of this plus
Yeah.
many more years before this, I would feel like it's,
Time to step back.
I'm pretty busy, so that's
Time to
why I'm
rest.
pushing back on extra meetings with folks that just need
Yeah.
the document, so I will accept it if that's how this is, but I don't know what you will be doing. You'll need to write an agenda item for selecting new people, you know, in May. So,
May.
Well, what's the mechanics if you did continue? You just step down and we
We elect a new chair.
re-elect a new chair.
Yeah. But of course, I mean, I don't. Well. We're probably gonna have we may have another member by then, no, so. I don't, it's gonna be one of us probably who's gonna be the chair after that, so, I don't know, yeah, I don't know, I don't know if we need to do that right now, but yes, we should be thinking about that.
Victor, you're still chair of the conservation.
Yeah,
Committee,
yeah,
aren't you?
Yeah.
That makes it a challenge.
yeah, and also I've been.
I can't put more energy into this group. I've really enjoyed it and I really want to see this plan, climate action plan put through, and then I'm going to get off the board because I don't have the energy and the memory and the capacity to keep going. So, but personal issues I've got to work on, my family. I'm sorry, but that's the way I'm feeling right now. I hope we don't dissolve, I don't want to see that. I'd like to see it keep continuing to be an important force in the town.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at me, but I feel the same. I have other commitments and I enjoy this level of commitment for now, at least. But I'm taking on a second job and that's more important. I need to make more money, so I just can't, and I'm doing 3 other volunteer things, so this is really important, so I feel like let's put our heads together and figure out a longer range plan, but if you're willing to accept, I would support it. But I'm hearing you say until May, right?
yeah, I'm here for the plan.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be clear, I'm here to pass this plan, but
We could also do, we don't, it's not probably in our charter, but we could do co-chairs, so.
Mhm.
2 people could share responsibility and alternate, so,
that sounds better
yeah, especially with,
until May.
yeah.
Hmm.
I nominate Nick as my co-chair.
I'll do that.
At least it's the winter, less busy farming time.
No, I mean, I profess to feeling like I have absolutely no competence for, you know, chairing the committee. I just don't have that kind of aptitude. Well, chairing a committee at the land trust. And finding that I need a lot of freaking help. So, anyway, but, you know, co-chair sounds fine. Does co-chair mean co-chair? You're co-chair, I'm co-chair? Is that what we're?
No,
Yeah, so I
co-chair.
mean, it's
Okay.
more of a, like, if Yvette is busy, you know, you would take over kind of, you've already done that, but as
Right.
vice chair of it,
Right.
just, you know,
If-
make it
Are
a
the
little more
roles
formal.
literally changing? Should I put in co-chair? Or is that just a behind the scenes?
No, I would say co-chairs.
I think it,
We'll work it out.
but does that mean we have to have a vice chair also? Or we
No,
have-
I would say.
I would
we're
say
just-
no, I think we
yeah.
just, if we're gonna have two chairs, I don't think we need a vice
All right,
chair.
well, I'll second Nick as co-chair,
Good.
if that's what
Good.
we need.
All in favor of this new arrangement?
Yes.
I guess that means that, Victoria remains as secretary, right?
Is that a nomination on the?
I don't know, I
secretary?
didn't know if we were voting on the
Yes,
whole.
we're voting on.
Question is,
Now,
Victoria, are you willing to
secretary?
continue to
Are there
do
not
this?
nominations for secretary?
Victoria, I'll second that.
Second that.
Yeah,
Any,
you're doing a good
any
job.
discussion?
Any
You're gonna
resistance?
take it, yeah,
No, no.
exactly.
Oh,
No,
wow, thank you.
Fine.
All right, all in favor?
Alright,
Okay, great.
So.
Don't forget to come to the meeting
5, 6,
and
7.
second public
December.
comment, no public.
So,
Oh, we do have to talk about, okay, so we're gonna have this event on the 18th. And then I'm thinking that we would still have like a follow-up meeting after,
In November.
yeah, like we had
for
before.
the committee.
Yeah, and that's not like during, Thanksgiving's on like a Thursday or something. So we
So
will
that would be a
keep the
Tuesday.
November
Usual,
meeting,
okay.
but then the December meeting actually falls on Christmas.
No, we can't do that.
So I guess we could revisit this after, we might want to revisit what we're gonna do about the December meeting at the November meeting, only because I'm curious what, I'm losing track of the timeline of what's going on with the plan. So if we need to like regroup about something, we can just,
Yep.
we'll figure that out for them. So we'll do November meeting and we will revisit December meeting at November to figure out if we should do it or not.
Great.
Okay,
Are we there?
motion to adjourn. or-
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, second, all
I'll second.
right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Thanks, Jackie.
Thanks to everyone
Thank you.
here. All right.